Guys, I'm sure you've seen the video that is making the rounds on YouTube where Julius Malema is put on the stand and he speaks about the President of the Republic, Cyril Ramaphosa, and Patrice Motsepe, where he doubts that they are even billionaires. Yeah, but I'm going to let you see the video of Julius Malema where he says this. Then at the end, Penuel explains why Julius thinks this way.
Sometimes I've got suspicion, my lord, that is an imposter. I'm not sure. I don't agree. I'm not sure. And majority of the people you refer to as black billionaires, by the way, majority of them are imposters. They are posturing. They do not own and control the claims that they are owning. So I don't know. I don't know of any owner of the means of production who is black and African. I can see that people who are fighting to enter that level, but as to whether they own is something else. I don't know. I mean, we were told here, my lord, that our president is a billionaire, that he will never ask money or steal money from anyone. This is the man who must elect. Then, boom, the man has taken money from other billionaires to finance his campaign of CR17. Which billionaire does that? He presides over a party that cannot pay salaries. As a president, it comes back to you that your party hasn't paid salaries. Why would a billionaire not pay salaries of his staff members? I think he just likes being called a billionaire. Just likes being called a billionaire. But the man doesn't have anything share. They just like being called those things. I don't think they are real. I don't know. I doubt.
People like Gayton McKenzie and Johan Rupert live off dividends of businesses that they own. So it's always nice to say, I'm giving away my salary. Cyril Ramaphosa owns Shanduga. And if ever Shanduga pays him 50 million in dividends a year, if he earns a 3 million rand salary as a president, he doesn't need the salary. So he can give it away. And if he gives it away to charity, it becomes a tax write-off, which he can use against the 50 million. So part of the 50 million won't get taxed because he's given away 3 million. But that's financial engineering. So it's not necessarily for free, number one. Number two, Gayton McKenzie understands politics and he understands the business of politics. I'm talking tenders, I'm talking BEE. And I'd like to think Gayton McKenzie, Julius Malema, and other politicians understand that if they gain power in this country, they will be able to gain access to tenders. And they will be the favored people to do business with white monopoly capital, the Indian, Chinese, colored business people in this country, foreign business people. So they're willing to forego money for now to gain power later. It's not just a Gayton thing. It's most people in politics at the highest levels that understand. I just wanted to make that point. I studied accounting and economics. So I'm an accounting and economics major from Rhodes University in Grahamstown. And I did my honors in accounting at the University of Johannesburg, Kingsway campus, Auckland Park. I've read a lot of business books. The most famous ones, the most influential ones. I was not raised in a family that does business, even though my mom was a hustler. She used to sell, like most other mothers, your Tupperware, your Amway, the juice. There was a juice that they sold, pots. She used to sell secondhand clothes. She used to mark for other teachers for extra money. Yeah. So she was hustling, but she wasn't a businesswoman. We didn't own businesses. She didn't have a shop, etc. So I wasn't raised in business. I don't understand how business works. So I read about business and I met a lot of business people. But when I started business, I was still very naive. And having qualifications and meeting business people and reading the books is not enough. It's almost the equivalent of soccer. I can tell you that I've read all the soccer books. I've watched all the soccer matches. I'm friends with soccer players and soccer coaches. Maybe I was built athletically. But when you get on the field, it's a completely different story. You may not be good. And I wasn't smart enough and good enough in business. And that's why I lost money. I was naive. I was still very human. to be very successful in business, you need to move more towards machine and away from human. I was counseling because I do online consults. I was consulting with a young gent. He actually drove from Richards Bay in Durban, in KZN, by the coast, to Joburg to come see me. And he was going home to Mpumalanga. And when I took a walk with him, we took a walk around one of the amazing parks in Joburg. He was talking to me about he wants to create employment and empower. And I was like, whenever you put people first, you are not running a business. You're running a non-profit organization, a charity. If you're like, I want to get into business to lower unemployment and to give, you're doing charity work. And charity work there are people that do charity work and they are funded. When you put money first, you're running a business. So I made the mistake of putting people first. And that's why I lost a lot of money, because I was running charity, but from my own pocket, which is not sustainable. When I speak about worth, most people don't understand what that means. And it breaks my heart, because some of our biggest heroes have said these things and we don't know what they mean. Being a millionaire doesn't mean much. But when you say it, it's such a big deal and people don't know what it means. I've been studying the Forbes rich list since early varsity, along with the Bloomberg list, the South African rich list as well. I've studied all the big entrepreneurs on the continent, in the world. I've met some of them. When you understand accounting and economics, you understand that net worth is assets minus liabilities. Your assets for an ordinary person is your car, your house, maybe if you have some cash and savings. Your liabilities is your house loan, your bond, your mortgage. So you have a 2 million rand house, but you owe the bank over 20 years, 4 million. You have a 500,000 rand car, but you owe the bank over 6 years, maybe the equivalent of 900,000. You have deposits, but on the other side, you've got a credit card and a personal loan. So you take these assets, you minus these liabilities, and you get a net worth. Almost all of the rich lists, Forbes, Bloomberg, South Africa, whatever, don't have access to the liabilities. We don't know how much Patrice owes the bank. We don't know how much Aliko Dangote owes investors. We don't know how much Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk owes banks and other people. We don't. All we know is their assets. We also don't know all their assets. We only know the stuff that they are forced to share, because if you invest in a listed company, you can buy 2,000 rand in shares in SAP. SAP has to show that Justice owns 2,000 rand worth of shares. So if you own 20 million rand, we will know, because it's public information. That's why the CEOs, the CFOs, and other executives, their salaries are public knowledge. In a private company, you don't need to know how much a person's earning. In a listed company, we have to know, because we are shareholders, we are investors there, it's public. So we only know the listed. So you'll know Patrice Motsepe owns African Rainbow Minerals, African Rainbow Capital. Then they'll do some valuation of Sundowns because it's a known team. Aliko Dangote the same, Dangote Cement, Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, whatever. Bill Gates, Microsoft. So we only know the assets, we don't know the liabilities, we don't know their real net worth. And we only know the listed stuff. Now the asset valuation is based on a measure. I hope I'm simplifying this.
Yeah. No, I get you.
My mom bought our house at Drop-In in town. We lived a Section 4 in Matadeni with my dad. It was a house he got under the Zulu government when he worked for the Zulu government. It's now obviously the KZN government. My mom, as a school teacher, got a loan and bought a house in Arbor Park, which is a suburb in Newcastle. And then we moved from Arbor Park. She sold that house and we bought a house in Central, in Newcastle on Talmadge Street. Beautiful home, huge yard. She bought that house, if I was to maybe just give a guess, in 1998 for 200,000 rand. That was the bond that was approved. So at 200,000, I know interest rates have gone up, but at 10% per annum, you're looking at maybe 2,000 rand a month for a 200,000 rand house. Fast forward to today in 2023, you might find that house is worth 1.2 million rand. Because over time, the value of property goes up, inflation, all those things. And let's say over those years, my mom has paid off the bond. So the house is fully hers. Every month she has to pay rates of 3,000 rand because of the neighborhood it's in. There's maintenance, there's whatever. 1.2 million rand. My mom, let's say, is still a school teacher. She earns 15 to 20,000 rand a month. My mom is a millionaire. Why? Because she owns an asset worth 1.2 million. She doesn't have 1.2 million. She's not making 1.2 million a year. She owns an asset worth 1.2 million. One day you might be able to sell it. For other people, a 1 million rand asset is not a house. It could be a truck. Not because the truck, you can sell it for 1 million, but because that truck maybe makes you 100,000 rand a month. And 100,000 rand a month is 1.2 million a year.
Yeah.
So you tell people I have this truck and maybe a contract to make 100,000 a month. Therefore, I will sell you the truck with a contract for 1 million. So that becomes now your worth. So when I say I was worth 2 to 4 million, it was based on my assets and the income I was generating, which was 100 to 200,000 rand a month. I didn't have 1 million rand in the bank. Because people are like, oh, I want to see your bank statements. Where were these millions? No, that's not what it is. Now, because that's how net worth works, and that's how worth, and that's how I now, for myself, focus on cash flow. When real businessmen say cash is king, they mean it. How much cash are you making? I sat with an entrepreneur this year who runs a business that makes over 100 million a year in income. It's got over 200 employees, 100 million. I asked him, what is your gross margin? Discussing accounting now. Gross margin is your income minus your cost of operations as a base. So if I've got a ShopRite, and I make 100 million, how much is the cost of the stock? 20 million. That means your gross margin is 80 million.
Yeah.
So he makes, this guy, about 80% gross margin. Net margin is something else. Net margin is after you've paid your tax, after you've paid other costs, after you've paid your debt, because your business probably runs on debt, after you've reinvested money into, etc. 20%, 20 million. So he told me his gross margin is 20 million. He makes 100 million as a company. The profit is 20 million. So now you'll be like, oh snap, this guy makes 20 million a year. Or someone, when they report on Forbes, Justice makes 100 million a year. You don't. Someone else will be like, no, this guy makes 20 million a year. You don't. I went and I asked this guy, how much is your salary? How much do you get paid a month from the business? And he said 50,000 rand a month, which is 600,000 rand a year. That guy makes 600,000 rand a year. His business is worth 100 million in turnover, worth 20 million in net profit. His money, his cash,
the one that he takes home,
is 600,000. If he earns 50,000 a month and you work for a bank, for an insurance company, for a retail, and you make 50,000, you guys have the same cash. Your kids will go to the same school. You will drive the same car. You will have the same house because your cash flow as an individual is the same. So I've realized that cash is king. I've once asked someone, I remember Julius Malema was being interviewed when he had a case with Afri Forum, I think. They said, but you've got black billionaires like Cyril Ramaphosa and Patrice Motsepe. And Julius said something that a lot of people never heard before. It's like, I'm not sure if they're billionaires. He's like, Your Honor, I'm not sure. They say they are billionaires, but I'm not sure. And you're like, I mean, Patrice, depending on the year, is worth 1 to 3 billion US dollars. You multiply that today by almost 20. If he's worth 2 billion times 20, that's 40 billion rand. What do you mean you're not sure if he's a billionaire? Then Penuel will come and explain that if he's worth 40 billion rand, it is his stake in his companies. The stake in his companies doesn't mean it's cash. It's like your mom's stake in her house. How much are his companies making every year? The mines, Time Bank, Sundowns, etc. How much are they making? How much of it is gross? How much of it is net? And then how much of it are his dividends and his salary? And you might find that he's like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. Elon Musk and Steve Jobs is passed on, but they don't earn salaries. Elon Musk doesn't earn a salary. If you were to be like, Elon Musk, pay slip. Hey, Ntwana. Angna pay slip, Ntwana. Haibo, what do you, Ntwana, you're the richest man in the world. Ntwana, I pay slip. I don't earn a salary. I think Steve Jobs' salary was $1 a year. What do you mean? I don't know about Steve Jobs. Maybe he lived on dividends, but Elon Musk lives on a credit card. And he does this it's a tax trick. At some point, maybe when I start going hard on business and money, I'll start doing like content that actually gives people the hacks on how to actually win in the money game. He lives on a credit card. So when you look at lifestyle, you might find that you make more than Elon Musk. His net worth is to the moon. He can go to the bank, sell his shares, use them as security to go and get money, but he's not. What is key is cash. When you and I walk into a shop and we need to eat food, and you're like, hey, Ntwana, I've got no new. Ntwana, but you're a millionaire. I've seen you being interviewed on CNBC and
BBC.
Hey, when you own businesses, you're like, hey, Ntwana, my businesses. Last year, my businesses paid me 20 million. I'm telling you real stories. You meet an entrepreneur who's popular in the streets. He'll tell you last year, my businesses, the dividends, paid me 20 million. And then because I got a loan to invest in these businesses from the bank, from an NEF, from a CFA, from an IDC, from a PIC, I got a loan. So I have to pay that loan. And the way it's arranged, I don't pay them monthly like normal people. I pay them every year when the dividend is declared. I got 20 million in dividends. I'm a millionaire. Not only did I get 20 million in dividends, when you look at my share of the companies I own, they're worth over 300 million. And those businesses paid me dividend of 20 million. But in terms of the debts I have to pay back, especially with the interest rates going up, I had to pay back, let's say 18 million. So of the 20 million, I keep 2.
Yeah.
And of the 2 million, because I live in an estate, because I have 4 cars, because I've got 7 children that go to private schools, because my lifestyle, because of, to be honest, what I'm left with every month is 10, 15,000. So when we go out, you have a nice little job or 50,000, but you live in a small flat, you drive a nice little car, your kids go to a decent smallanyana Model C, your disposable income is more than this guy. So he's asking you, Ntwana, please, can you pay for the meal? But the guy's worth 300 million. Last year, he cashed in 20 million. He has 2 million to live his life, but he's only keeping 10 to 15,000. Now, to explain this to people is what we call financial education, which most people don't have. And if you have to start it, you have to start it from scratch. What is money? What is an asset? What is a liability? What's an income? What's an expense? What is gross margin, net margin, a balance sheet, income statement? And you'd have to show examples until people finally understand, so that when Likau and Casper Nyovest sit down and they're like, we've got a press conference, we're signing 100 million rand drip deal with Casper Nyovest. Everyone's like, yo.
Malengaga.
Penuel's like, get the fuck out of here. The fuck do you mean? Luckily, Likau was asked in an interview and he responded and he was like, no, it wasn't 100 million deal like Drip is giving Casper 100 million.
Yeah.
What we were saying is we're going to release a range for Casper. And our hope is that we will sell so many sneakers that it will bring in 100 million. We hope. Ha. 100 meter deal, no Likau. And you're like, you guys don't understand money and it's embarrassing. So when Penuel says he's worth 2 to 4 million, it almost means nothing. I was making about 100 to 200,000 rand cash per month. That's more important. And of that 100 to 200,000 rand cash, my lifestyle at the time was between 20 to 30,000 rand a month. I was making 20 to 30,000 rand a month.